Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to track 4 here at Radio Days. I'm Des Paul. I'm the room host for today, so my job is very simple, which is just to introduce everybody and thank everybody for speaking for the next 40 minutes, our last session before lunch. We're talking about Gen A, Generation Alpha, young people, stuff that we really need to learn about because the world is moving very quickly. And to host this session, I'm going to introduce somebody who I first contacted when I wasn't quite Gen A, but back in the 90s trying to get into radio in the UK, we used to send out a little 10-minute cassette demo and a letter. And I know I'm not the only person in the industry to do this, but back then when you used to get a letter coming back to you saying, "Dear Des, thank you very much for your recent tape. Unfortunately," it didn't really matter what the rest of the letter said. It could have just ended at "unfortunately." And I wrote to Francis, and he sent a letter back to me saying, "Dear Des, thank you very much for your recent tape. I enjoyed much of what I heard." Didn't say unfortunately, actually said, "Keep going and send another tape in 6 months and speak to a colleague of mine," which I did, who ended up being my boss. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and this goes back to the mid-90s, because I started when I was 10, if only. But anyway, I'll hand you over to Francis Curry.
So what Des has basically said is, I'm a dinosaur. Thanks, Des. Anyway, I have to apologise first of all. Henriette, who was going to be here, unfortunately sends her apologies and can't come. What I can tell you, though, is we have two outstanding experts in their field. Just to say, my name is Francis Curry. I'm an international radio and audio consultant. I have been in the industry for a while. I'm also a partner in a specialist radio research company called Curry Norden. So my job is I help clients grow audiences, and we provide kind of strategic insight, operational support across programming, content, digital, and marketing. And it's so nice to have you here. I think we all three of us had this big fear that actually we might be talking to an empty room, because I feel in some ways we're talking about one of the most important issues facing not just radio, but the entire audio industry today. And at the same time, we're not really talking about this bit very much. I mean, it's been lovely to see the youth track and hear people really talking about 1524s. And the previous session with Emily and York about recruiting new talent was fabulous. I really loved that. And this session's really about, I don't know when you first listened to the radio, but for me, I was 5 or 6 years old. We went to a kind of discount warehouse with my mum. I bought a radio for about £3.50. It was, and I had it strapped to my handlebars of my bike. And at 5 or 6 years old, radio was my connection with real life, big city, rock and roll, showbiz. You know, radio was my life, and I'm doing the job I love. But I think, you know, if you talk to a 5 or 6 year old now, radio is something that your dad or your mum or your grandparents use and doesn't have any real connection with you. So times have changed a lot. We understand we're in a unique period of churn, and we've heard a lot about AI, for example. But the question of this session is, how do we connect with kids and build a relationship with the next generation of listeners? We've had the Youth Summit, which has been brilliant, but the truth is, as a radio industry especially, audiences are drifting older. Radio stations are focusing on easier, longer listening, older listeners. And as a result, we've also got some of the more senior people in the industry saying, I can see this problem coming, but I'm going to retire before the problem gets here, so I'm not going to worry about it. And I think the danger with that kind of approach is we're building in a ticking time bomb into the future of not just radio, because this is not just about radio, it's also about screen-free entertainment. But we're building in a problem if we don't help our children understand how to connect with audio, the power and the joy of audio without pictures, which really kind of focus the mind and drive the narrative and limit the imagination. So, big questions. How does the audio industry connect with Generation A? Will young listeners ever get the radio habit? What is the advantage of audio in a screen-based world? And for a lot of us, equally important, how the hell do you make money out of kids? Because if the radio industry can't see a profit or can't see a revenue line, they're not going to do it because they have a responsibility to their shareholders. So we've heard a lot of great words, I think, over the last couple of days. What a brilliant conference, right? We've heard a lot about the what people are doing. Today, we're going to get a bit deeper into both the why we need to do something and the how with a most magnificent case study. Alexandra Daskalopoulos is founder and CEO of Front Stage Entertainment. It's the #1 radio group in Greece, and we're privileged to have her here. She has the most interesting, practical, live example of targeting and innovation, and it's the most fantastic case study in Kids Radio and kidsradio.com. We also have Adam Woodgate with us. He's Senior VP of Media Insights for Dubbit. Now, they're based in the UK and the US. Adam's been researching 12 to 18-year-olds since 2015. He used to work in radio as well, so he understands the slightly weird people in the room. He's also worked for EMAP, he's worked for The Guardian, and he's worked for the BBC. So the format is we're going to ask them to give a short presentation to kind of set things up, around about 10 minutes each. Then we're going to open the floor to questions. If you're mic shy, if you don't like talking into a microphone, we still want to hear what you have to say. If you've got the app, all you have to do is drop me a message and I will ask the question on your behalf. My name is Francis Curry. I'm the only Francis at the conference. I have to thank my parents for that. So I'm easy to find. So you can ask the question with a microphone afterwards, or you can send me a question on the app at any point during the conversation, and we'll go. So first of all, it's an absolute honor to introduce our first kind of kids guru, Adam Woodgate.
Francis, thank you. It's great to be here on behalf of Dubbit. Dubbit's a 25-year-old. We're 25 this year. Don't we look great on it? We're a specialist kids agency focusing on research, and we have a digital studio. Now, there is a lot of data that sits behind this presentation. I've stripped it right out on conversations with Francis. So I've got two versions of the presentation. If you'd like the data-heavy version and you want to dig into the insights, I'll gladly share that with you. Let's swap cards or take my email down. It's at the end of the presentation. All the numbers I'm going to focus on today are based on our global kids tracker, which focuses on 20 big markets around the world. It's called Dubbit Trends, and it focuses on 2 to 15s everywhere bar the UK and US. We actually go up to 18 in the UK and US. So the question is, why should radio focus or care about children and teens? Francis talks about his radio experience. I got into radio listening to Junior Choice on Radio 1 with Ed Stewart. That's what got me into radio when I was 4 or 5. So similarly, I got into radio and was bitten by the bug. But let's meet the next audience, the next customers, the next taxpayers. So any child born since 2010 is part of Generation Alpha, or Gen A, which is the first generation to be entirely born in the 21st century. They are unique. They are a global, digital, mobile, social, and visual generation. 2.7 million Gen As are born every week, with India, China, and Nigeria being the top countries of birth. It's anticipated they'll live longer than any generation that's been born on our planet. So much so that many will live to the 22nd century. Scary thought, perhaps. By the time Gen A ends and the next generation, which is Generation Beta, begins next year, 2 billion will have been born. They will be the largest generation in the history of the world. Now, the year of the inception for this generation, 2010, coincidentally is the year that the iPad was launched, which means this generation has never been without touchscreen, mobile, interactive media. And it's this that makes them distinctive to previous generations. Yes, older generations have come to embrace smartphones and tablets, but they also knew the world before they came along. Gen A hasn't. As such, devices and infrastructure that sits around this generation, high-speed broadband, Wi-Fi, 4 or 5G cellular connectivity, charging facilities, are seen as the essentials for this generation. But I think it's also the most disrupted generation since the war. And it's impossible to look at Gen Alpha without considering the 5 phenomena that have shaped their social lives and learning, and therefore their attitudes, behaviors, and the way they consume media. There are knock-on emotional effects for kids and their families and society in dealing with the challenges of kids feeling a loss of agency, sensing parental worry. They were at home listening to parents talking about job security, financial worries, anxieties about growing up, and social delays from not being in school, not being with friends, not being with people their age. So, in 2015, Jeff Bezos, who was then CEO of Amazon, responded to an interview question. I frequently get asked the question, what's going to change in the next 10 years? And I say, well, that's a very interesting question, and it's a very common one someone that runs a company like Amazon would be asked. But he then went on to say, I almost never get asked the question, what's not going to change in the next 10 years? And the truth is, and I've seen it in this conference, I've seen it all my life, we listen to the radio, we hear things, more things stay the same than actually change. So let's start with 2 things related to kids that don't change. Regardless of the generation, a child has to pass through successive phases of human development. And in each of these, their surroundings have an important, though different, part to play. And something else that doesn't change is no one's been able to extend the day from 24 hours. So on a typical weekday, other than preschool kids, generally children school age only have about 4, maybe tops 5 hours of freedom to choose what they want to do. So what you're looking at here is the top 5 activities that kids like to do across Europe, and the baseline scores, so that it's greater than 70% like to go out with the family, greater than 60% like to watch online video, and so forth. The point here I'm trying to make is kids haven't changed. They still want entertainment, they still want to play, they still want to be social, they still want to spend time with family and friends, they still want to have fun. And here are the top 5 weekly activities, and they align very much. Little bit of difference, music jumps up to number 3, and playing app games comes in at number 5. The age of connected screens which we all live in has dramatically changed the way media is consumed for the many. And Gen A, or the ICANN generation, in a sense have never known a world where they haven't been able to connect, or make, or watch, or listen, or play, or interact, or immerse through the available screens. And from an early age, these mobile screens have been used as nannies, as entertainers, and educators. And mobile screens allow kids to curate their own media lives, something that couldn't happen before the tablet and the smartphone. And the line on the screen now shows the proportion of kids in each of the 5 countries there, France, Germany, Italy, Spain, and the UK, and the age at which they get to own their own tablet. And you can see the general growth trend across all the countries. But then let's overlay the smartphone. And this is the proportion of kids who have their own smartphone. And we see the point at which their curation of media lives switches from a tablet-based life to a smartphone-based life as kids get older. So around the age of 9, 10, a little later in Spain, children are primarily using tablets for their entertainment choices from that kind of age. We see the point of inflection where the smartphone ownership grows rapidly, and by the start of secondary school age, the smartphone is generally the preferred screen. It's the PC in your pocket. It's portable, it's cellular, it's connected, it's convenient. At a radio conference, I thought I'd share some numbers on device access to radio and smart speakers. And you can see here that in the UK, Spain, Germany, Italy, it's over 50%. Smart speakers, Italy, Spain, and the UK, also over 50%. So they've got access to devices that bring them audio. But let's remember, radio and a radio are not the same anymore, just like TV and a TV are not the same anymore. So many kids have access to mobile connected screens, but what do they use them for? Let's start with audio. Audio has advantages for kids, and Francis asked the question earlier. Audio doesn't get in the way of their lives or their play in the same way that video does. It can enhance an experience. Who's played Amazon Story Reader? Amazon Story Reader is great. A parent reads a story and Alexa makes the sound effects that sit with the story. You know, they're walking in the wood, the crunch of the leaves, the wind blowing in the trees. It's a great experience to have a play with it. And more important, from a parent's perspective, it doesn't count to screen time. And kids love that too, because it means they can listen to audio. Even if it's through a screen, it's not screen time. So here are some of the audio-based activities. Top 10 activities listening or streaming music, slightly higher scores on a smartphone. As yet, only 5% or less stream or listen to a radio station on their mobile or connected device. Real opportunity there to grow the audience. And listening to podcasts actually does better on radio, does better than streaming radio, especially on smartphones. Kids spend a lot of time on screens, and that's a common thing you'll hear, screen time. You'll see it in the press, too much screen time. Screen time can be good, and lots of parents learned the value of screen time during COVID. So here we see quite a complex chart, but I'll explain it quickly. You see the average time per week spent with all forms of video, whether that's broadcast, satellite, SVOD, AVOD, BVOD, CVOD, FAST, TVOD, social media, YouTube. It's massive, peaking with Spain. Games is roughly half or less of what video is, and then you can see learning and education, which is all kinds of things from homework and assignments to kids doing their own learning, internet browsing, and then listening to music at somewhere over 2 hours a week. Lower for younger audiences, higher amongst preteens. So, how many times have you heard the phrase spoken about content being the king? And these days, there is more always-on content than ever before. But with all this content, how does a kid find what they're looking for in anywhere in terms of entertainment? Now, when we got into radio, radio was competing with other radio stations, and then outside radio with television and print. Not today. Especially in a kid's life, all media and entertainment competes with all media and entertainment. This is a great quote from Reed Hastings. There was another one that was tweeted by Netflix. My main competition is sleep. So you can tell, even to excessive levels, the fight for ears and the fight for eyeballs is on. Now, with preschoolers, parents are the main introducers of content and new brands, but you can see the other ones as well. With older kids, it's friends. So when kids go to school, parents become less important, friends, peer groups become more important. What's interesting for me is the power of influencers at such an early age. Kids love listening to people who talk about things they love too, and where there's a connection. So a video gamer kid loves kids' fashion tips, toy reviews. Kids love seeing or hearing someone who shares their passions and interests. And with the advent of UGC platforms like Fortnite and Roblox, kids are now discovering brands on those platforms. And what do kids talk about in the schoolyard, in the playground, in the park? Well, it falls roughly into 3 categories: me, my world, and the brands I love. And as I say, I'll gladly share this with you, so that you don't have to fill your phone with screenshots. But, for me, there's a ton of brands in there. Not all kids' brands. They're already getting into older, brands very quickly. And talking of brands, we couldn't talk at kids without monetization. I wholly disagree with the argument you can't monetize kids. It might be investing in the future, in the way we mortgage a house or a property, but don't believe you can't monetize kids. I know there's a ton of regulation. I live through it all the time with COPPA, GDPR, age-appropriate design code. They keep coming at you all the time. But, despite this, and what you're seeing here is what parents on average have spent in the last 3 months across the 5 European countries we've looked at. Physical is toys, books, box video games, that sort of thing. Digital is apps, in-game purchases, TV, that sort of stuff. Experiences is going to live events, attractions, and that sort of thing. So not only is the money that parents are spending that you could tap into, there's also the fact that children influence parental purchases, whether it's the family shop, the vacation, days out, various other things. So, I know I've only got a limited amount of time, so a few thoughts to leave you with. You need to care about children and teens. They are the next audience. They are coming. In 4 years' time, those oldest kids will be 18. They'll be entering, further education or the workplace. They're harder to reach than young audiences were previously, which means you have to work harder to catch their attention. But like previous generations, they're still interested in their family, their friends, their locality, but they're more global, more connected, and more willing to experience culture from elsewhere. Remember, you have to go where the kids are, and investing now, I promise, will pay off in the lifetime value of a listener. Thank you. There's my details. Do please get in touch if you want the presentation.
How interesting, how fascinating, how much information. Just to make the point again, Adam has so much insight, so much information. There is a longer version of that presentation available. If you'd like it, contact Adam, contact me. We'll make sure you get it, because there's layers and layers and layers of insight behind what he told us. So don't forget, if you have a question for Adam or for Alexandra, Francis, in the swap card app, you'll find me very easily. Send the question, I can ask it on your behalf. I suspect there's going to be a lot of questions. But for now, honestly, an absolute pleasure. I think you're going to be fascinated by what you're going to hear next. It's a real pleasure to introduce our second speaker, who has the most fascinating story to tell. Please welcome Alexandra Daskalopoulos.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming. I'm Alexandra. I'm CEO of Front Stage Entertainment. It's the market leader in radio in Greece, with 33% of the population tuning into one of our radio stations daily. But I'm also founder of Kids Radio. So you heard that right. It's a radio on FM just for kids. And when I started this, there were quite some things I heard over and over again. And the main thing I heard was that it will never work. There is no money in kids radio. Kids don't know what radio is. It's so niche, you cannot put it on FM. But about 20 months after its launch, it was #1 for the entire market, and that's 47 stations in Athens, for women 33 to 45 years old, with a weekly reach of 15%, and #1 station rated suitable for the whole family. So what did this experience of launching kids radio teach us? One, it taught us that in a changing media landscape that we are navigating, we need to look out for unmet needs. We can't keep doing things as we're used to. An unmet need in the market is an unmet need in the market. The second thing, and third, yay. Okay, so a second thing is that it's a mixture of research and gut, and everything we do is about that, right? So this is a heavily researched station, from focus groups to little surveys. So we use our old radio toolbox, but we also use our gut. The third thing is that whenever you do any new projects, it's all about trial, error, correct, repeat. And the fourth, and most important for me, is that radio is alive and well for Gen A if we teach them about it. And it is our obligation to do so. So let's talk about unmet needs. So the hole in the market first became apparent to me when I first became a mom in January 2016, and I couldn't find quality content or a safe environment for me and my kid. I just went to YouTube, there were these high-pitched voices, all these inappropriate ads coming and going. Don't even think I had premium back then, but, and we couldn't find stories or fairy tales that you sometimes want as audiobooks for your kids, especially in the Greek language. So my gut was saying, this is too loud, too busy, too fragmented. There is a need in the market. But besides being a mom, I'm also a radio entrepreneur. And seeing around Europe and the US and everywhere, there weren't examples of kids radio on FM. So I thought, obviously, I'm not the first one to think about this. Someone thought about it. It makes no sense. There's no money in it. I should hear people around me when they say this is not going to work. But I don't do that. So I was in the maternity ward, and I don't know if most people spend their time in there. this way, but I was organizing focus groups for this project. That was for my first kid. For the second, I was negotiating an FM frequency deal to buy like another FM station. So that was first kid, second kid. But yeah. So anyway, the thing that happened back then is we had so much in our pipeline that we shelved the project in 2016. And then COVID hit. And then it became even more apparent that, parents needed quality entertainment, high quality, and a safe environment for family entertainment with their kids, especially audio, because obviously you can give them a screen, but you don't feel like a good parent if you do that all day. But you also need to work, and you're working from home, and you also need to, clean your clothes and the plates and all of that. So they were going crazy, we were going crazy, and we thought this is the best time to launch it. But we launched it as a .com first. And back then, we also have an events department. They had nothing to do, no events whatsoever. So we're like, great, you're going to become developers and help us launch this, website. And at this point, I have to thank a person, Matt Deegan. He runs Fun Kids in the UK. It's a DAB station for kids. And he actually gave me ample advice when I was starting this. So I wanted to thank him and then move on and say that we followed our gut again. What are our main concerns? Safety, quality, control, none of them found on YouTube, for instance, and easy for parents. Someone needs to aggregate this and curate it for me and make it nice for my kid, please. So that's what we created. And when the product was good enough, we decided to put it on FM. Everyone thought I was mad. Everyone. So consultants, no. The commercial department said this is not going to make any money. This is too niche. And also that anyone you're trying to target is already found in your other radio stations. So, why do this? So I said, okay, let's put it temporarily on FM. And then I took that back and said, it's going to be permanently on FM. So that was a gut decision, right? And my gut was saying that this will work, and now it's working. So as aforementioned, number one in the market, 15% weekly reach, but this is important. The ratings are answered just from 15 to 70-year-olds in Greece, which means it's the caretaker answering, but they're listening with at least one kid, maybe more. So this is a bigger number. And we hit all our qualitative targets, so secure, screen-free, and high-quality content. These are some, so I have never seen such a big loyalty and engagement in any other of our stations than I have seen with Kids Radio. And obviously it has a generic name, the way, a hit station has hit radio, rock. So those are always like a good thing to have to make it clear what the brand is. So what we did is follow the program of my kids, basically, but it happened that it was universal, and everyone has that same waking up, doing that and that and that. So we see that in the verbatims of the listeners. We tune in every day on the way to school until the little ones get back, and then we keep on dancing. Then a big one is that parents keep listening even when their kids are not there, so they're enjoying the station. So what we did was we changed the program after 9 and actually put more AC music, which they enjoy as well. And then that's important to me in terms of the teaching the next generation about radio. They did not know the word radio, just the word radio. So, very basic stuff. So great, the radio is stuck on 88.6. And we have an unmet need in the market that is being met. But you're going to ask me, how do we make revenues? And do we make revenues? And I will tell you, Kids Radio was profitable within 12 months of its launch. And obviously, disclaimer that we have a bouquet of stations, right? So there's synergies across department. You're not going to have new marketing and new departments. You're going to use the same ones to launch the station. Even your events department, that had nothing to do in COVID. So basically, you will see that the year-on-year percentage increase is very steep. And this is something you see in niche radio stations much more than mainstream stations because they don't have, it's more of a monopoly, really. No other such station exists in the market. And you have your expected categories of clients. So you have health and beauty, so sunscreens, vitamins, and so on. You have entertainment, so your Disney on Ice show, new venues for kids, and so on. What is unexpected, though, is that we don't target the kids themselves. We target the adults listening. So this is not just for ad restraints. I'm a mother, so I do not want my kid to hear stuff that is inappropriate. So we screen every ad, and we've said no to money because it was inappropriate, because we have to keep the brand as high quality, and secure environment. What's more important as well, actually, is that there's new coming radio clients. So suddenly, we had people that had never advertised in radio coming as advertisers in radio. And that, for instance, is your Playmobil, your Swatch Group, those kind of brands that weren't previously on radio. And in terms of the breakdown, you see that it's 70% your regular airtime and everything, but 30% is events. And this is because this is a brand with multiple offshoots, and this is the way I generally see radio or audio right now. It's that we can no longer live in our silos. We need to actually extend to brand extensions, which Adam mentioned as well. So we do events, and as part of that, we do school visits. That was very key in teaching kids what radio is. And they love it, right? They come to the station. We record their voices in the production booths. We give them a USB stick when they leave, and they listen to it with their parents. And they're mesmerized by the backstage of radio. And they learn how, how it connects with the transmitters and so on in a very simple way. Client events, more generator of revenues, and then our annual Kids Radio Festival, which is sold out in 10 days, and this is basically just a little video of that. So the main thing is that kids do love radio, but we have to teach them what that is. But aside from teaching them what radio is, we have to serve it in the way that they like to consume, as Adam said before, and I'm happy we're aligned. So 2 days ago, we launched a subscription version of Kids Radio, which is Kids Radio Plus. It's coming. So Kids Radio has 300 to begin with as a launch, 300 plus audiobooks in the Greek language and English as well, and we're going to improve that number very soon. We have 25 plus online radios for every mood, and they are called radios. So it's anything from teaching kids rock music with our presenters from the other stations, or farm sounds, or for your party, for your kids' party, if it's older, if it's younger. And there are few, because this is screen-free is an important aspect, but we also saw how video is also competing. And I do want to have everything under one ecosystem. So here it's educational and activity-based videos. This came out of COVID as a need. So it's like doing experiments at home with your kids, or drawing and teaching them how to draw or build different stuff. So it's all educational but fun as well, and things you can do with your kids. And there's kids podcasts and all those things you can imagine. I will show you a little video of Kids Radio Plus. And the main idea here is that, and I said that yesterday in the summit, that radio can't just be radio anymore. You know, Disney's not just film, TikTok is not just music videos. It's all about creating brands that have multiple offshoots and then are served in different formats. So this is another format of that.
Έλα, ακολούθησε τα κίτρινα ακουστικά. Ήρθε το Kids Radio Plus, μια φανταστική πλατφόρμα σχεδιασμένη αποκλειστικά για παιδιά. Η πρώτη και μοναδική audio και βίντεο πλατφόρμα με 300 plus παιδικά audiobooks, αποκλειστικές συνεργασίες, εκπαιδευτικές και ψυχαγωγικές βίντεο εκπομπές που καλλιεργούν τη φαντασία των παιδιών και 25 plus online radios για κάθε περίσταση. Απόλυτα ασφαλές και ποιοτικό περιβάλλον, χωρίς διαφημίσεις και με έξυπνο γονικό έλεγχο. Από τους δημιουργούς του Kids Radio,
Kids Radio Plus. Ακούμε, μαθαίνουμε, διασκεδάζουμε.
So those were my kids doing, you know, I've put them early, 6 and 8, and they're already doing Spikaj. Anyway, so what do I want you to retain from this session? One is look around, observe the unmet need. Don't think this is how we keep doing things, so we're not going to try something new. Try it. Obviously, when you do that, you don't need to just go blindly. You have in your pocket your experience in radio, your toolbox, your research. So it's a mixture of research and gut. The third thing is, with any new project, trial, error, correct, repeat. Like kids, if you don't fall and get back up, you won't know what works and how to even walk. So fourth of all, radio is alive and well for the next generation as long as we teach them about it. So this is what we did for this demographic that I think most of the industry has turned their back on. I hope it's been helpful, and if you want to reach out, you can afterwards. Thank you.
I'm so sorry we don't have more time. How brilliant were those two speakers and how much information and insight was packed into them. Fabulous. We do have time for maybe 2, maybe 3 questions. So does anybody have a question? Yes, would you mind just saying who you are, where you're from?
Hello, David Prever from Radio News Hub. Congratulations, what an amazing thing you've built. How do you see Kids Radio expanding? Where are you taking it next?
So especially with, not everyone has an FM frequency in every country or wants to put, you know, kids radio on FM. But especially the Kids Radio Plus version is something that we already plan to roll out into other countries as a white label platform where you either take our content and we can dub it and so on, or you can put your own, because the platform was created, it's 100% owned by us, and it's created exactly in the way that I, as a parent, wanted. Like, there's parental controls for audio or video. You know, there's for 0 to 5, 6 plus. So these things, it's a platform that works really well, like Netflix, but with better safety and control. So yeah, we're going to be rolling that out in other countries as well if they're interested. So that's how I see that one going.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, sir, would you mind saying who you are, where you're from?
Peter from U105 Belfast. Can I ask Adam, given the example where do you see radio fitting into the lives of kids every day?
I think there's a really interesting platform that we kind of spotted in April 2018. It's been around since 2006. It's called Roblox. It's where kids are. More than half kids in the UK and US are already on Roblox, and it's growing across the rest of the world. iHeartMedia has iHeartLand in Roblox. They've got 13.4 million visitors a week to it, which is staggering when you consider it's not a native platform for radio. You know, I often say to all my customers, you know, go where the audience is. Roblox is one of those platforms where the audience is. And the great thing about Roblox as opposed to YouTube now is there's about 6.5 billion videos on YouTube. Discovery is a nightmare. Roblox is still not that busy. Have a look at it. Have a look at Fortnite too.
Fantastic. We have time for maybe one more question if it's easy to answer. Yes, please. Would you mind just saying who you are, where you're from?
Hi, my name is Linia, and I'm from the only country with love in its name. Alexandra, a question. Physically, with your 2 children, how does it look when they listen to the radio? Can you explain how it looks in your home?
Yes, so basically, I'm adding voice control to this platform because my kid will actually want to ask someone play that. Or even if they want like a specific song, they're gonna do that. But when they listen to radio, especially in the car, it's something they love. Now I tried the Kids Radio Plus on a trip we were at, and the audiobooks, I was like, they're gonna last 20 minutes, and it was an hour and 40 minutes, and they kept being like, now, no, my choice, no, my choice, my choice. So they, and with the stations too that we have in, they're like, I wanna hear that, then it's my choice. So I actually move a lot by looking at them, and it's nice that they're in the target audience and they're there. So yeah, they do love it, they love it. I don't know later, Adam, about the word kids within kids radio, right? Because after 10 years old, they maybe don't want to be called kids. So that's why this product is up to that age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, Netflix, we do work with Netflix, and Netflix Kids has a lot of negativity around the login from around 9. Kids don't want to be called kids, but you build a great product, they'll overlook the name. If they love what they're listening to, they'll put that to one side.
So thank you so much for coming. I hope it's been interesting, entertaining, and useful. Would you mind saying thank you to, I think, 2 fantastic speakers this afternoon?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to Francis Curry as well. We'll see you in an hour.